In 2021, we had a record year, $45 million in sales revenue.
Wow.
I took a leap of faith at a young age. I was 25 years old. I quit my job the next day.
Yet the best way to start generating income is by being a broker, and then you really learn the space.
Say he was going to sell us 10 trucks worth $320,000. And we sent him the money and he never came through. So he he committed wire fraud, and that's a
No
whole
way.
nother chapter of a book. But it kind of went through some tough, depressing times, if you could imagine. But that was a super big driving factor. You know, are you going to give up? Are you going to get after it, make things right, and use it as a silver lining for growth?
Wow, what a punch in the head, man. Entrepreneurship sometimes is like the hardest thing in
It's
the
like
world.
you start a business, the last thing you want to do is lose $300,000.
Ah,
You know, you can't give up. You got to have a little bit of thick skin, because there's some tough guys out there that are going to let you know you're a rookie and amateur and don't know what you're doing.
Hey, Dylan, it's great to have you here. You and I have been talking for a while. I think you've built an incredible business. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and kind of where you come from and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, you bet. So I'm the owner of American Truck Store. We're in Hartford, South Dakota. A more known place would be Sioux Falls in the southeastern corner of the state. And we deal commercial Class 8 semi trucks primarily. We do a little bit of trailers and in medium duty, smaller stuff too, but primarily the big over the road trucks you see every day going down freeways and interstates across the country, hauling goods from point A to point B. Most of the business is a wholesale department. You know, we're cold calling. We got a team of cold callers that are calling fleet companies, dealerships across the country, looking for truck deals. If it's 100 trucks or one truck, it doesn't matter. We do like a third party inspection, or depending on the deal, we inspect ourselves, make sure the terms and conditions of the vehicles are up to the industry standard. And then we sell the truck where it sits, generally for a wholesale margin. And then we also have a retail operation here in South Dakota, where we'll bring the trucks that fit our local demographic. So like farmers and cattle haulers, construction, that type of thing. We'll bring those trucks back and do a full reconditioning process with those vehicles and put them on the lot for retail sales. So it's kind of like, a fancy version of a used car lot, essentially.
Wow, this is so cool. So in my very basic understanding, you have a group of guys or gals that call different truck companies, like truck owners, maybe logistics companies. You guys see if they have used trucks that they're looking to sell. You'll give them a price to buy them. Sometimes you'll buy one truck, sometimes you'll buy 100 trucks. And then immediately you'll go and you'll find a buyer for those trucks, for most of them. And then once in a while, you also have a store in South Dakota where you'll bring some of those trucks, you'll rehab them, you'll get them fit up to maybe charge extra, and then you'll sell those off the lot. Is that the simplistic kind of understanding of what you guys do?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we like the ones we bring home. Absolutely, we're trying to get a bigger retail profit margin off of those, and then the slimmer wholesale, quantity-driven margin on the wholesale stuff that we don't bring back. But yeah, 100%.
Okay, so can you give me some kind of high-level numbers of where the business is at, and then I'd love to rewind the clock and learn a little bit about where you got started.
Yeah. So today, in 2021, we had a record year, $45 million in sales revenue. So that is
Wow.
the cost of goods sold, essentially. That all the trucks we sold, all the minor services we sold, are just under 45 million. And that, was probably triple than the year before that. So we've grown quick, and a lot of that is due to a few different things, post-COVID market conditions, supply constraints, and then also just our company's growing too. You got new team members, new capital to leverage, and all that good stuff to have kind of this perfect combination for growth.
Okay. How many employees in the company today?
Right now, we have a retail sales manager, an administrative person that's kind of like an OpEx person. He's getting trucks from A to B around here, bill pay. Title work's a big deal in our industry. We got 2 full-time guys in our in-house detail shop. And then we have 2 1099 guys that are out on the phones calling remotely. And then we also have basically an in-house mechanic and a paint and body shop also.
Okay.
They're not on our W-2 or payroll, but they do, they're right where we're at in the same location and rent from us and do a bunch of the work on our trucks.
Got it. So like 10 to 15 sounds like employees and consultants all in.
Yeah.
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 Okay. And how did you start this? Like, what was the first, I guess maybe give me a little bit on your background. Like, what were you
Yeah.
doing 15 years ago?
So I'll
And
just
then
start
what
from
was
like,
like the first month of this business?
I'll just start all the way back from my childhood. So I
Cool.
grew up, I'm a trucker son, you know. My dad is a blue collar, hardworking guy. He had a trucking company with a friend of his that was, you know, kind of on a growth scale, and they hit some hard times and had to sell out unwillingly, or they didn't necessarily want to. It was kind of a rough patch they were going through. And he rebounded and built himself up back to a smaller fleet company, we'd call it. It's a he had probably 10 to 15 trucks. So growing up, from the time I was able to work, I had been doing, you know, service jobs, changing oil, fixing trucks up, doing tire work, all these different things from a young age. And I learned really quick, like, man, I do not want to be doing this my whole life, you know? So I took the college route, and then I was an athlete in high school, but not good enough to where I wanted to go play D1 sports. So I just went for school to get my good grades and have a good time and do all that stuff. So the whirlwind to college goes pretty quick, as a lot of us know that have experienced that. And I was sitting there in the last month of my senior semester, wondering what I was going to do with my life. I had no idea. I was like, oh man, I did it. Now what? So I actually got licensed and insured to be a financial rep at Northwestern Mutual. And in the first few months, I was out calling on potential customers, the people that I knew.
For their
Uh,
life insurance product? I looked at that internship once when I was in college too.
yeah, it's
I got
kind
pretty
of
close.
no knock on Northwestern Mutual, but that's kind of their business model. They recruit heavily college, and then they get those guys in, and you know, they get their friends and family signed up, and then it's sink or swim from there.
Yeah.
But I have friends that do it successfully. So either way, it is what it is. Kind of funny though, like I went to go call in these people that worked at the Kenworth Volvo dealership in Sioux Falls, where I'm from. And my brother was a sales guy there, and I was trying to get his boss signed up. And he's like, man, why don't you just come sell semi trucks with us? You can work with your brother. You know, he's successful. You seem like you do a good job at it. So I was like, I quit my job the next day, essentially, and started
He
selling
flipped the
trucks.
sale on you. You were trying to sell him something and he sold
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of cool how that all worked out. And even though I had worked on trucks, you know, my whole life and driven them and have done all this stuff, I still had no idea about selling them, you know. So it was like drinking out of a fire hose for 2 years. Kind of got caught up to speed on the retail side of things. And I noticed, you know, the ownership and the GM kept wholesaling trucks, and that kind of intrigued me for the volume they're pumping out to these big dealer groups across the country. For, you know, as a sales guy, you want to get your volume up. The more trucks you sell, the more money you make, and it seemed like that's where the volume was at. So I kind of took it upon myself to delve into that and figure that game out, and basically took it upon myself to network with all these dealers and fleet companies across the country to get involved with buying their trucks instead of selling them. And it kind of took off from there. Probably worked under that dealership for about a year in the wholesale department. They promoted me to the wholesale manager. And then I kind of took a leap of faith at a young age. I was 25 years old, 24, 25, and decided to run a brokerage, you know, think of it like a real estate broker almost. I decided to run a brokerage out of a spare bedroom in my house, and it kind of was taken off from there.
So you struck out on your own, and what did you do then? You basically started hitting the phones looking for trucks. Like what was your first month?
So it was pretty slow for a while. You know, you kind of got to let all your contacts know, like, it's that uncomfortable situation. Hey, I quit my job and I'm doing my own thing now. And, you know, the reaction to that is always mixed. And then you got to kind of re-earn people's trust and re-earn their business. But luckily, I had some really good people that I got to know over the few years I were there, and had some really strong relationships that kind of got me through that transition where, you know, they were still buying trucks from me even though I was on my own. So the biggest thing was just sourcing trucks and keeping those good relationships with those guys that I had from before.
So how did you, I mean, you're like a 25-year-old kid, you're out on your own. How did you buy your first, did you buy one truck? Who'd you buy it from? And like those things are like $50,000 to $100,000. How did you afford it? Or did you need to pay for it? Or like, how did that all work out?
So it's kind of frowned upon Not totally if you do it the right way, but a lot of the times the trucks were pre-sold. So we would get the sale docs from like our customer. Say the fleet company was selling the truck to me, right? Well, I would turn around and generate an invoice to my customer, on good faith merit, like, hey, here's your invoice for this truck. In good faith, I'm going to deliver this truck to you.
Yeah.
So they'd actually pay me, and then I'll turn around and pay the customer for the truck and take my profit that was left over. And that's how, it started from nothing based on that
Oh,
principle of
perfect.
business, a good faith business. So.
I always say like the best way, if you have no money and like you don't have anything kind of built yet, the best way to start generating income is by being a broker. And then you really learn the space. So like real estate broker, insurance broker, you were obviously brokering semi-truck sales. How much margin could you capture on those first few sales? Like if the truck is 50K, how much do you get to keep?
I started in pretty tough times, which I thought was a good thing. I was like, if I can make it now, work on these skinny margins and push through until things get better, then it'll be gravy. And obviously that's an ever changing market, and it's a volatile market at times, but we're looking anywhere from like 4 to 6% margins on wholesale sales.
And a
And we
truck
still are
is,
today. Yeah.
is it fair to say a truck is like 40 or 50K or so when it's used?
I would say the average price is 50 grand.
50K. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So we're looking at two, 3 grand a flip, per truck.
That's great. That's really great. So you, I guess, start building a book of business. You find people that are now selling you trucks, maybe semi-regularly. And then what? Do you just hire some salespeople? You kind of grow from there?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing was building capital, we had some pretty major setbacks. Actually, in my very first year of business, we had a guy that had bought a few trucks from, say he was going to sell us 10 trucks worth $320,000. And we sent him the money and he never came through. So he committed wire fraud, and that's a whole nother chapter of a book. But we started from the very, very bottom after that. It kind of went through some tough, depressing times, if you could imagine. And luckily we have a family member that came through big and loaned us money to pay our customer back. And, we paid them back within a year. But that was a super big driving factor. Are you going to give up? Are you going to get after it and make things right and use it as a silver lining for growth?
Wow, what a punch in the head, man. Entrepreneurship sometimes is like the hardest thing in the world.
A day in the life, you never, as you start a business, the last thing you want to do is lose $300,000.
What a nightmare. Was this like a person that you'd done business with before? Or is this kind of a first time thing? And
no, that's what the crazy thing was. We had bought probably from him 5 or 6 times before in the same year. So
wow.
You kind of think you're good with the person, and obviously we do things a little different now. We cross our T's and dot our I's a little bit more diligently. Kind of a lesson learned to not be so trustworthy with people,
Yeah.
But anyway, so the biggest thing at the beginning was just getting the capital and getting the deal flow going. I mean, in sales, in any sales, it's all about building the pipeline full, So you get to a point where you got enough money. We're buying trucks for cash, straight cash, like our retail trucks. So that was great. I mean, you can imagine that could snowball pretty quickly, right? You got a $30,000 truck and you have it for a week and you sold it for $35,000, $40,000. Well, now you can go buy another one, and it just kind of grew from that little snowball effect from being able to get that first truck bought cash. And then from there, over the years, you grow your team. We added the sales guy over time. Then over more time, I got so much deal flow. It was like you're just underwriting truck deals all day. Your email is just getting hammered with trucks for sale from all these dealers and fleets, and it gets to be overwhelming. And that's when okay, I need to grow my team. And then from there, you get new capital. Banks are on board with you. They see after 2 years of business, they see like, okay, this guy's legit. This business is legit. We'll give them, say, a $500,000 operating line was our first one. And we always kind of try to keep a certain amount of cash, just like a real estate, like an LTV real estate ratio. We try to keep that a certain, 50 to 60% cash to borrowed money on our inventory. But yeah, I mean, you start there, and then pretty soon, now we're at our ability and buying power for trucks is probably 5 to 10 times what it was just 3 or 4 years ago. So
Right. So you can now, you can now source, 10 trucks. You can use a credit line from the bank. So you don't have to use your own cash in order to buy those trucks. And then you capture a margin that's higher than whatever the bank is, quite a bit higher than whatever the bank is paying you. So it allows you to keep more of your cash flow and also generate cash flow using the bank's money. Is that kind of a simple understanding of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
You're using the bank for more buying power on bigger deals, and then people know you're a player on bigger packages. Well, then all of a sudden they start bringing you bigger deals, so it's kind of a waterfall effect.
Your growth has been pretty astounding because it sounds like you haven't, how old are you now?
Just turned 32 a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool. We're the same age. Yeah. So you haven't been doing this so long. You're generating 45 million of revenue now. When did you start your retail location and why did you? Because it sounds like wholesaling is most of the business. It's really where you started, got your bread and butter.
I started the second year, and the main reason why I did at the time was for legitimacy. I didn't want to just be a guy in my underwear brokering trucks in the spare bedroom. I wanted a legit website with trucks for sale. And I did that, yeah, for just the legitimacy and the brand of business. So if people say I'm the American truck store, you got a brick and mortar place with actual trucks for sale. I think that, at first it was like, hey, I'll make a little money doing this, but it's more important to be legit in my network's eyes, so to say. So then they're more apt to bring me truck, locally people are more apt to bring me truck deals. And then it kind of grew from there. And we don't have a huge online presence or anything today, but I still think it helps, to just be a little bit more legit than a one guy brokerage in a bedroom.
Yep. This is Dylan's bedroom calling. We're looking for 10 trucks.
Yeah, right. So that was the main reason. And obviously now it's grown to quite a nice profit center and a nice little niche of trucks that we sell.
Nice. What do you think of the rest of kind of the world around you? Other people that are either wholesaling or auctioning trucks? Like, who do you see as competitors? And like, really, what do you think of them? I mean, it seems like you've carved out a really nice niche for yourself. So what's going on out there? What are you seeing?
It's getting competitive. I will say that, I think like there's still a lot of people that don't know about the business, but it's kind of like seems like a lineage of guys like me that have come from bigger dealer groups that are out there realizing like, hey, I can go cold call and broker trucks on my own and wholesale trucks on my own. So, there's some guys that are very similar in size and business model to mine that are getting pretty aggressive and growing their buy teams. So, and the cool part is it's still such a small network. We're all friends with each other. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, if we run into each other, we like, hey man, like I'm already on this deal, or how can we work together on this deal if we know we're both on it?
Yep.
Or, hey, this is fair game. Let's just bid against each other. Best man wins.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool because there's really only, off the top of my head, I think there's only like 5 legit companies that are just wholesaling. And then obviously you have the big OEM dealer groups that are biggest customers that are, selling the new trucks, parts and service warranty that, are buying trucks from us for their used inventory.
Are the OEM groups, so that means for me, what I understand is they're branded locations. Are they buying other people's used trucks, or are they only reselling and buying their own used trucks? And do they have wholesaling divisions? Because it sounded like the Kenworth group that you worked with did have their own wholesale division.
Yeah, the Kenworth group that I worked with, there's only a couple of guys that were doing wholesaling, and a lot of the times these OEM dealers are taking in a large number of trades. South Dakota is a great example, right? So they got some 5 to 10 big fleet companies that are trading in like 50 trucks a year that are over the road fleet specific, and there's just no one here that needs that truck in a local application. Mm-hmm. So that's where wholesaling comes in. Like, okay, we're going to take these trucks in on trade and we're going to wholesale them to a California dealer or a Texas or Florida dealer, just to a market that has a bigger local demand for that specific type of truck. And that's honestly like arbitrage in the truck market, is that, you get Freightliner dealerships taking in Kenworth trucks that they can't use in their market. They don't want Kenworth trucks. So here comes me. I'll take these Kenworths and go wholesale them to a Kenworth dealer group or whatever, or it's the South Dakota version where it's not really brand specific, but hey, there's nobody here to use these trucks. What are we going to do with them?
So if you guys find 10 trucks in like Florida and they're needed in California, who drives them over? How do the folks in California get them?
A lot of the bigger groups have their own driveway drivers now, but
Okay.
generally they're getting brokered out to what we call drive-away companies. So if you're going down the interstate or freeway and you see the trucks all piggybacked on top of each other, they're usually bringing them from the manufacturing plant to the dealer, or they're moving our trucks for us.
Got it. Got it.
So they deck the trucks up with the tow truck and get them all piggybacked on each other and transport them all over.
What do you think it takes to be successful in this industry? Like you have been, like, what have you seen as the difference between you or somebody else that has started and maybe either faltered or really wasn't able to grow?
I think it's a lot of things. Obviously you have to have an open mind. I think it's a very intimidating at times. You're trying to sell these trucks to these people that at first you don't really know that well. You're trying to kind of break your way into a good old boys club, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot of perseverance in that regard. You can't give up. You got to have a little bit of thick skin, because there's some tough guys out there that are going to let you know you're a rookie and amateur and don't know what you're doing. So you got to push through that. And then I think the other thing with anything in business is just being personable and doing the right thing. I always, as hard as I can, I try to do what I say I'm going to do. Obviously, there's certain situations or things don't go exactly as planned, and you can't always do that. But I think that's the biggest thing, is like an integrity standpoint. Like, hey, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to my best ability. And then you just with life, if you keep doing that over and over and over again, you're going to build these relationships with people, and that's just going to compound over time. So I think that's really the biggest point of success, and then just being smart on how to grow it the right way and not getting out over your skis, and that type of stuff. So
yeah, those are definitely some applicable lessons to I think all industries that I've seen, especially ones where relationships are important. Do you think somebody could come in from the outside of the industry and build something here, whether it's, be a single shop retailer for trucks or do the wholesaling business? What do you think?
I think it's a really interesting niche right now that's, like you said, is not very well known. And there's not like there's not like big tech that's really into it. I think there's a lot of technological advances that could be used, whether that's like some sort of like software integration or some new way to do the process. I think that it's a easy business on paper, but it's hard to execute. And that's just all like kind of the small world that we're all in,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of makes it tough. And then the barrier to entry is, you got to know, it's kind of like the stock market. Like, you got to know the value of trucks, right? So that's the biggest thing. Like, and there's different ways to be creative without a lot of knowledge to figure that out, right? So, it's definitely possible for someone to come in and disrupt the industry, for sure.
What do you think of like the branded dealership franchises? Do you think that's a good business? Like, obviously a lot of people get into car dealerships, that oftentimes seems like a good business. There's a bunch of like celebrities and NBA players that own car dealership, or like, they're investors in car dealerships. Is that an interesting business on the semi side?
It's an incredible business because, for a lot of reasons. In a recession or in a bull market, trucks are still going to go down the road. People still got to eat. Goods are still going to be moving. And the biggest thing too is it's very, very restricted. So it's way easier to come in and start your own used car dealership or truck dealership and wholesale division, like I've done, compared to, I think today you'd almost have to do some kind of syndication to raise the funds to be able to buy out an existing OEM dealer, because the manufacturers aren't just handing out. It's not like a car dealership where you can just go start one in any random town, if that makes sense. Most of these dealer groups have AORs that, they own. So most of the South Dakota brands, they own the whole state or the whole region. They have the agreement with the manufacturer that this is our region and nobody else can come in and start a competing Kenworth, Volvo, Freightliner dealership in our region. So now you're seeing a lot of these bigger dealer groups going in on mergers and acquisitions. That's a pretty major deal right now that is kind of got the industry on edge. Are we going to end up with two different owner groups for each manufacturer? It's kind of seems like it's heading that direction.
What's kind of the downside or the risk of that you guys see?
I struggle to find one.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Cause on an OEM new truck side, you're going out trying to sell new trucks to your market. And that is driving parts and service, which is never ending on a vehicle. I mean, those trucks are putting on 10,000 miles a month. So you're constantly working on them. If they're parked, they're in the shop getting tuned up and ready to go for the next run. I think the only way you could really get in trouble is if you get out over your skis and bite off more than you can chew, as far as like build too big of a building or open too many locations, or ordered too much stock in new inventory, which right now is impossible because of the new truck shortage. I mean, most OEMs are still a year or two out on new truck orders, or not even sure in some cases. I fail to see a major risk, but that could change someday. I think it's such a strong industry that's so supply constrained right now that it's tough to go wrong. But
what's your plan for your business? Do you want to grow it? Do you feel like you're at a pretty good scale and you just want to keep on? Do you want to sell it eventually? What are you thinking about? Maybe you can cover those first two questions first, about like, how would you grow it and do you want to grow it?
Yeah. So I think, as an entrepreneur and business owner, you got to look yourself in the mirror and figure out what you really want in life, right? And that's something I struggle with. Do you want to be the king of used truck sales and king of the world? Or are you good with just making some good money and having a beautiful family and having free time with your wife and kids and being a sports dad someday and doing all that stuff? So you're constantly battling, devil, angel on the shoulder type deal. What's the right way to do this, and what's the right way to balance it? It's a challenge. I mean, you'd love to go make all the money in the world, but then you got to remember what really matters at the end of the day also. So, I mean, ways we could grow the business, there's internal departments that we could grow. I mean, right now we don't really have our own service shop. You could go out and hire mechanics and be a public service shop that works on your own trucks and customers' trucks. Another thing we could do is you can mirror that same thing with the detail shop and paint body shop. Also, you could get into part sales. You can consign with parts companies and sell their parts on consignment, or hold a certain amount of inventory and consign the rest. It's an interesting business model that I think has big potential. But again, all those things take more time, more capital, more effort, more people. So you kind of got to find a happy medium with yourself and figure out what you really want out of life and what you really want out of the business. And I think for major growth, you could take the same thing and, delve into other markets throughout the country, which people have done. Very few people have done successfully, but it has been done. So.
Do you think 5 years from now, you'll own 5 locations for the retail stores, or you think you're good with one?
I've thought about that too. I think, me personally, I'm probably good with one.
Okay.
I got a little baby boy at home and plan on having another kid, and I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. So I'm pretty strapped for time and effort and stress right now.
Yep.
To still be able to give them the effort they need from me as a dad. So
cool. That's really cool. Are there folks that you look up to in the industry, or just like in general, that you feel like you've learned a lot from?
Yeah, actually, it's really funny. I think about this a lot, and the people that have like guided me through. Obviously, you got like your family members and your dad. I'm lucky enough, I got 2 really good father-in-laws and my own dad, and 2 older brothers and an older sister, and my wife who's super supportive. But then like within the industry, I think back, and there is a guy who called me out of the blue. He got my number somehow as a sales guy at the dealership. He was probably looking for like the owner or the general manager, because he was trying to find the decision maker to wholesale trucks or buy trucks, right? And anyway, he got my number, and he's like, what do you got out there that's like 5 or 10 of the same trucks that are for sale? Like, go find me whatever you got that you have like groups of trucks, because he was looking to wholesale buy. And he kind of guided me through the whole process, and he bought like 20 trucks for me in a month.
Wow.
And he's kind of the one who opened my eyes to wholesaling trucks. And he would always tell me how many trucks he was buying and selling on a daily basis. And I was kind of like, there's no way this guy is doing this, like there's absolutely no way, because it just seemed so big and out of the picture that it wasn't even possible. But then you start seeing where he lives and the lifestyle he's living, and you're like, okay, this is kind of getting to be pretty detailed to be a lie. So it was pretty cool. He actually passed away a couple of years ago, but he turned into being a pretty big role model for me and opening my eyes my first few years in business. And we did do quite a few deals together. And obviously there's other guys that have been super tremendous in helping me out. And
what was his name?
His name was Tom Diebel. Was his
Tom
name?
Diebel.
Yeah,
Shout out, Tom.
Yeah, shout out
Thanks
Tom.
for teaching us your ways.
Hope we're doing well.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing well up there, man. He was a really good, interesting guy, and he sold a lot of trucks. Opened my eyes to a lot of things, but that's kind of cool too. Thinking about that concept is like success too comes from the people you surround yourself with, the places you go. You don't, here in a little town in Hartford, South Dakota, you never think things are possible until you get out there and see the world, and you're like, man, these guys are doing all these crazy things, and they're not much different than me. So, how do I replicate that or come up with my own way to do that?
Yeah, I agree. I think mentors are so important. They've been so important in my life. I don't believe in the concept of a self-made, successful business person. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We learn from people like Tom, and I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without a lot of people that gave me their time and gave me their insights and knowledge. So I definitely agree with you on that.
There's no self-made. Yeah, we got all of our family, all of our teachers, all of our old bosses, whether we liked them or not. There's so many people that make us who we are. So I agree.
Yeah. So this has been great, Dylan. Thank you so much for sharing. I guess as a last item, is there anything that you want to ask of the audience, folks that listen to this? Do you have any requests or final things you want to share?
Not really, outside of like, if you're thinking about doing something, do it,
Mm-hmm.
Take the leap, have faith, work hard, build your network, just go out there and do it. Don't wait.
Love that rally cry. There you go. Get out there, do it, start doing it immediately. Dylan started maybe just 5 years ago, and now sitting on a huge business in this beautiful house that I assume is his. Maybe he rented it for the
This is an
show.
Airbnb, actually.
Awesome, man. This has been great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. And that's it for this week's episode of Boring Businesses. I'm your host, Sieva Kaczynski. Thank you for watching or listening today. Any resources we mentioned during the show, we'll make sure to link in the show notes or below the video. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, please leave me a review. It really helps me learn, and it allows other people to discover the podcast as well. Thanks again, and make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.